Welcome, everyone. My name is Hallie. I'm a member of the Quad Education team, and I want to welcome you to our webinar on extracurricular strategies, making the most of your activities. We have two of our fantastic admissions consultants here with us today who are going to walk us through this topic and give you tips and strategies and advice for selecting extracurriculars, making the most of them, and how to frame them as you are thinking about your college applications. For those of you that don't know, Quad Education is an admissions consulting company helping students and families through the college admissions process. We help students from late middle school, early high school ages, from choosing classes and extracurriculars all the way through actually applying to college, writing your personal statements, filling out your applications, and everything in between there. All right, so we're going to talk about, we'll go through our agenda for tonight, and then we'll have our consultants introduce themselves and then take us through this topic. So we'll introduce our consultants. We'll talk about the importance of extracurricular activities, types of activities and examples. We'll talk about how to choose your activities, things to think about as you make your selections. We'll go over some tips and then open things up for a Q&A. So if you have any questions through this, pop them in the Q&A chat box and we will get to those at the end. We're also recording this webinar and it will be sent out to you via email over the coming days so you can refer back if you need to. All right, so we have Dan and Jenny here with us today. Dan, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan. Thanks for being here tonight. This is a really fun topic. I'm really excited to talk about this. One of my favorite things as a counselor is learning about all the amazing things that you do and then help you plan, additional ways to do that. I'm a two-time Stanford graduate, and this is just such a fun thing. So looking forward to hearing your questions and hopefully sharing some tips from some of the students that I've worked with.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Dan. And Jenny, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. I'm Jenny. Want to echo Dan's excitement. This is definitely kind of one of my favorite things of kind of engaging with you guys and learning about what you guys do. I graduated from both Emory and have a degree from Harvard and have been involved in kind of admissions at both places and kind of just love working with students. So excited to kind of dive into this topic.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Jenny. All right, let's dive in and talk about the importance of extracurricular activities. Dan, you want to start us off?
Sure. So just maybe a no-brainer for us here, but just to set the stage, what is an extracurricular activity? So we're looking at the things that are outside your regular school hours. So usually voluntary things, and they're great ways to express your interests, explore your interests, learn what's really exciting to you, build some new skills, and just kind of broaden your horizons beyond the classroom. So lots of things here that are really good and rewarding for you, and also it's a chance for an admissions team to kind of see what is at the heart of who you are when you don't have to, do things that someone else is giving you for homework or classwork.
Fantastic.
Great. And so, why are extracurriculars going to be so important for you guys? Kind of three big points here. First is they're going to really add differentiation. So sometimes it's going to be hard for admissions committees to look at your applications just looking at your data and your grades, because a lot of times it's going to be really similar to other students. So this can be a great way for you to kind of add, show kind of personality and show the admissions committee what you're all about, kind of beyond what your, scores might say. I think second of all, it shows more of the qualitative elements of why you are going to be an excellent candidate. So things that you're passionate about, if you're involved in community and leadership, just other positive traits that they're looking for. And then lastly, that past actions can be a good predictor of future behavior. So if you're super committed to contributing to things outside of the classroom now, admissions committees are going to be convinced that once you get to their school and their campus, you're going to be a positive contributor to that community as well. So we'll be a great way to kind of show them that.
Yeah, so building on that, so some of the benefits here of involvement in extracurricular activities, and hopefully you're experiencing some of these already. One is that they do complement your academic experience, and there's actually, there's good reasons to believe that participating in extracurricular activities actually correlates with strong academic performance in terms of focus and things like that. And then we touched on this already, but there's a different set of skills that can be involved in these activities. Whether that's kind of leadership things or collaboration and teamwork, and just some things that can really shine and also give you kind of good practice experience outside of your classroom work. And then finally is this idea of personal growth. So hopefully you're finding extracurriculars that do stretch you, that do push you to try something new, to explore, to kind of get out of your comfort zone a little bit and have some fun while you're doing that. So opportunities to explore your strengths, passions, and will help with kind of self-awareness and confidence. When you're writing your college essays, there's lots of questions that ask you to do some kind of deep introspection about what makes you you, what matters most to you. If you could study anything in the world, what would it be? And being thoughtful about your extracurriculars really gives you a chance to be ready to answer those sorts of questions.
Fantastic. Jenny, do you have anything else to add to this?
No, I mean, I think I really want to kind of emphasize the point that Dan made about by being able to kind of explore all these different things, it really gives you a lot more content to work with when you're kind of having to answer all of these questions. And we'll kind of dive deeper into the presentation later about kind of, picking and choosing what to do. But it'll be really helpful in the application process. Great. So extracurricular types. So mostly they'll fall into these kind of 5 categories. So service or volunteering, school-based, work, academic, and structured program. We, I think, are going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of these in the coming slides. But just want to note that structured programs, those are going to be similar to academic programs, but may not be focused on academics, but rather than on skills.
Yep. So let's talk about some of those categories in a little bit more detail. So starting with the academic category of extracurriculars, these are the sorts of things that your school provides. They can be clubs, they can be teams. So we've got some examples here. Lots of students get involved in MUN or a debate team, decathlon, mathlete, spelling bees. Sometimes they have some pre-college summer programs that are run that can be a great opportunity to kind of get exposure to a campus. Actually, I really love these. I tell all of my students that you really want to have a personal connection with the schools that you're applying to, and so participating in a pre-college summer program gives you a chance to have like a really authentic personal experience with that school, and that translates into more passion, more enthusiasm for that school, which really can come through in your essays. And sometimes that extra passion can be a tipping point in the admissions process.
So the kind of second category is sports, which kind of might be obvious to many of you. Of just kind of the different, you can both do team sports during the school year. There's also camps that you can do over the summer. I would say that from admissions committees really love kind of sports kind of extracurriculars because I think a lot of times it's really able to show, working in teams and being able to kind of talk through kind of the things that you go through on a team and having to work together. So that can be kind of, if that's something that interests you, can be kind of a really good extracurricular.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to like set anybody at ease, if you're like, I'm not a sporty person, like just know that like you don't have to have something in all of these categories. Sports is like one common category, and it is a great one. You can demonstrate a lot of the skills and the attributes, the personality, traits that colleges are looking for, but it's not the only place. So I wouldn't want anybody to. What we don't want to do with our extracurriculars is be sort of box checkers and saying like, oh, I just need something to fill this sports bucket and the music bucket and then the academic bucket. I mean, there are things we want to be well-rounded. We want to show, some of the common things that they're looking for, but the actual activity itself doesn't matter so much as like, are you showing leadership? Are you showing service? Are you showing curiosity, ability to work well with other people? And you can do that in lots of different settings. Okay, so another category obviously is the arts. This is another great chance to express your passion, whether that's in the performing arts, in choir and band, or whether that's like the visual arts. This is the sort of self-expression piece, I think, is really helpful. And if you can talk about things that are like, meaningful to you and ways that you express your voice, there's often, essay questions about that, ways that you are contributing to, the conversation, the way that you're like involved in, using your unique voice to impact positive change. And the arts can be one really neat way of doing that. I had a student who she was really into poetry, and so one of her essays was all about how her poetry was a voice for change. She was advocating for change through her poetry, and like that was just like a really beautiful example of in her essays.
Yeah, and I would say that kind of, with all of these categories as well, there's opportunities to kind of, like we mentioned before, to show lots of different aspects, because even in the arts, right, you can show leadership by, being the first chair in your orchestra. You can show kind of entrepreneurship by starting a new club, community by kind of, bringing a concert to your local community. So, there's lots of different facets to each of these categories as well.
One of my favorite things to encourage students to do, if they have the interest, is to like, can you start something that aligns with your interests? If that's like a particular style of music that you want to see show up more in your school, if that's a particular, like, oh, I really want to do more, we really ought to do some sort of like art show at our school. Anything that you can do that is like showing some initiative around one of your interests and passions, whatever that is just a really great signal, and it can be really fun too.
And we did just get a question, someone asking if you need to do one extracurricular from each category. And I just want to say you definitely don't need to do that. We're just going through the options that you have and things that you can be thinking about when choosing extracurriculars. It can be overwhelming when you have a list of 100 different things that you could be doing in your school extracurricular list. So we're just walking through some of those, and then later we'll talk about how to prioritize what you want and choose from these options, and also use these options as building blocks.
Yep. Second that. We were talking about this before the call here, just like the importance of like the quality of the activity is more important than the quantity. I encourage all of you, if you haven't done it already, go out and like look at the applications for this year and the essay questions that are asked and see how many activities there's space for you to put in. Like you won't be able to put everything in. And so it matters to be able to select the most important things. So whatever it is that you feel like, you really love doing, that's like just like an important part of like your extracurricular experience. Lean into that. Think about how we can like get more mileage out of that. One exercise that I have my students do is create a sort of matrix of like, these are things that colleges are looking for on the columns, whether that's like leadership, academic aptitude, varied interests, caring about the community, global awareness. Those are sort of attributes. And then in the columns going down, like, these are the activities I'm involved with right now. And you can kind of see across those, like in any of those things, just like Jenny was saying, like if you're into performing arts, you can show all of those attributes in your orchestra, potentially, if you're thoughtful, if you're mindful about it. Like, how am I growing my global interest? Oh, well, we did this really interesting, piece from this part of the world, and we had this interesting conversation about it. Just being mindful about those attributes and how they fit into what you're already doing can go a long way to getting more mileage out of what you're currently doing.
All right.
Great. So another category would be work and internships. And so, this can be both kind of any part-time work that you're using to earn a wage, or it could be participating in research, or just, taking on a large role outside in your household, kind of outside of school. These are all kind of ways to show initiative, whether it's you might be pursuing, something that you're interested in, and kind of learning more about it, working with people in the field, or even, I think the other thing is, colleges are kind of aware of different financial circumstances. And that's definitely something that you can incorporate, kind of, telling that story of how you spent your time. Maybe you don't have the time to, do all these crazy clubs, but you've, got a lot of great experience doing these other types of things. Also a really good way to kind of show those extracurriculars.
Mm-hmm. I saw a really good question from Eliana in the chat. Her question is, do you have advice for people with too many activities that they would like to mention in the app? Definitely have seen this. Some of y'all are like into so many different things, and it's really like cool and inspiring. And it's hard to consolidate that down. Sometimes you can combine things, like if you've like participated in a bunch of, let's say you're a pianist and you've done a lot of like music competitions. Instead of listing each individual competition, you can consolidate those into one thing and say, did 10 competitions, placed X many times, and received this recognition, right? Like, and that can like consolidate a little bit if you're feeling like there's a lot to share. But yeah, it is. It can be challenging. It's a good skill too. You have to do that for resumes. Typically, you want to keep to like one page. So learning how to like condense your experience down into a single page to get the most important highlights. That's a skill you're gonna use your whole life.
Absolutely. Thanks for tackling that question, Dan. I think it's definitely a question we get a lot, and is something that is hard to do, but important.
So hobbies is another great category. They may not all count as extracurriculars, but there are ways, again, thinking about those attributes that colleges are looking for. And if you have good ways to demonstrate that, that's great. If you can quantify things, that's always better. Like if you are, if you spend a lot of time skateboarding, for example, think about like, well, how can I quantify the skills? Are there competitions I can be involved with? Can I like train, younger kids on like how to do that, and say I've done X hours of service teaching and mentoring, right? Like there's ways that you can take your hobby and you can quantify it, and you can demonstrate leadership and service through that hobby. So the hobby itself may not be something you put on there, but what you do with it could be something that you put on there. Definitely some good examples here. So coding, building websites, these individual sports, biking or skiing, crafts. The other thing that is sometimes helpful here is like, essays will talk about times you overcame a significant challenge. So if you can talk about fears that you overcame and how you did that, people that helped you do that, you can find some good stories from these activities too in your essays. Some of these crafts as well. Yeah, this is a really good example of like using your crafts to create something that you donate. And maybe even better, can you take it the next level? Can you organize other people to do that with you? Teach people to do it, create an event where you bring other people in and then donate it. Like suddenly your hobby, your crafting became this like leadership, this organizing thing, this like give back to the community thing. And then that's just like a really awesome experience and a great story for your applications.
Yeah, I would say, I think, kind of echoing a lot of the points that have been made, showing your passion is super important and is going to be what's going to shine through in kind of anything in your application. So these hobbies, you're going to do because these are things that you enjoy doing on the weekends, things that you're genuinely interested in. So if you can, if you are, actively pursuing those things, that'll definitely, I have no doubt that that passion is going to shine through in your applications, and it's going to be a differentiator for you guys.
Perfect. All right, and let's talk about leadership.
Yeah, leadership is definitely something that you want. I would say everybody should try to get some solid leadership on there. It's something all colleges are looking at. Why do they care about it? One of the things that is the most impactful thing about your college experience is like who you go through that experience with. Who are your peers? So as an admissions team, you're thinking about, okay, is this somebody who is going to really, make a difference on our campus for other students? So it's a great learning environment for everybody. And leadership and a track record of leadership is a strong signal that you are somebody who does that, who takes initiative, who gets other people involved in things. So definitely try ways to do this. Student government is a great way of doing that. Creating a club. Again, this is like my favorite thing to do is like take your passion and turn it into a club. Or if you're within a club, can you like propose, you can work within the existing structure too, even in an informal position of like starting new initiatives, new projects, do something that you kind of spearhead. That's a great leadership opportunity as well outside of an official role. So yeah, organizing events, projects, the volunteer activities, these are all great chances to grow your leadership.
Should we briefly just discuss how colleges definitely want to see leadership, but you don't need to, be student council president to show leadership? I think you touched on it briefly, but just want to that home.
Totally. So many different ways to do that. What is leadership? Leadership is taking initiative. It's setting a vision. It's motivating other people. It's creating a movement. And it's possible to be student class president and not do any of that, right? Or it's possible to be, in an informal role and like you create new projects and you like. One of my students that like she is part of like a committee, and so we're talking about how can she be the person who like facilitates the vision setting for that broader committee. And that's a really important leadership skill and leadership role that she's doing, even though she's not like the president.
Great. Jenny, anything else to add here before we move on?
Yeah, I think I would say kind of, along similar lines, it can be, both macro and also micro, right? So you can be the leader of this big group of a student body president of 100 people. And that definitely counts as leadership, but you can also be a leader in your small group of friends among, 3 people or your small club. just kind of making really impactful things in small ways. It doesn't always have to be super big. That you can have a lot of impact in small ways as well.
All right, so let's talk about how to choose the extracurriculars that you do.
Great. So in terms of choosing, we really want you to take time to kind of, be reflective and assess your personal interests and passions, right? So kind of like we said before, you want to make sure that the extracurriculars you're participating in are things that, are aligned with your values, aligned with your interests, and kind of something you're generally passionate about, and not that things that you're not doing just to check a box, because admissions committees will generally be able to see right through that. So, making sure you are reflective about your personal interests and passions. And then 2, to set clear and achievable goals for your involvement in the extracurriculars, right? So what kind of time commitments are going to be required for you to do those? How much commitment are you going to be able to give to your extracurriculars, leadership positions you might want to take, and taking all those into account. And then, lastly, aligning them with your long-term aspirations, right? So, before you mentioned, things like hobbies, maybe you love to kind of build computers on the side, and in the long term, you want to be an engineer or you want to be a software developer, right? Making sure that kind of there's a story, and you can kind of, see where those extracurriculars might take you, also is good to think about.
One of my favorite things that we do as counselors with Quad is the first, very early on, we do what's called a persona development exercise, and which usually means we're taking a look at your resume, we're taking a look at what extracurriculars you've done so far, and then we're also kind of interviewing you and trying to tease out, well, why did you do that? What was most important to you about that? What did you like? What did you not like? What do other people say about you and what you're good at? And try to get this picture of like, these are the themes of you as a person and your strengths as a unique individual. And then once we sort of like understand that, and like it's kind of your values, it's your profile, then it can be really helpful to use that to select the activities that you do. And I think that's our next one here is around how do we select the right extracurriculars here on the next slide. So being aware of like your values and your interests, always kind of try to start with that like really authentic place is really important, because 1, it's going to be so much more fun and enjoyable for you. 2, you're going to be more successful at it because you've got that intrinsic interest. And 3, it just kind of like shows up in your applications that this is like really kind of who you are. But some principles here to think about are, so 1, we do want some diversity of it. Again, you don't have to check all these boxes, but some diversity. Colleges care about diverse interests. They care about curiosity. They care about initiative. If you're, really only doing kind of one thing and doing it really well, that's great. But let's, think about like, what else could we do to kind of round yourself out? This second point here of looking at the relevance of each activity to your goals and your aspirations. So if you want to go to med school, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, or if you want to go into technology or fashion or whatever that is, how is that showing up right now? How are you exploring that right now? How are you bringing that into the things that you're already doing, your clubs, your schoolwork, things like that? And then the third thing here is understanding the commitment level that is required for those activities, making sure they fit into your schedule. So then this is something that a counselor can sometimes help with a lot. A common like framework that is used in the business world is, a start, stop, and continue. And that's something that's helpful to do personally when you look at your extracurricular activities. What do I want to keep doing? what do I want to start doing? And if you're starting something else, you may have to stop something as well to create space, again, so you can go deep on those things and not kind of end up with kind of shallow experience in many different things.
So helpful steps. A lot of this we've already covered. Maybe just the one thing I'll highlight on this slide is the research and explore piece. So obviously, we've highlighted a lot of extracurriculars that you can find within your school, but also, take a look around in your community. There's, tons of activities kind of in your local area that you might want to get involved with. And then also, I would say that kind of, post-COVID world, there's a ton of things that are remote as well. So I think that's kind of opened up a lot of opportunities online that you're kind of not just limited to your local area now. And there could be some national organizations that you can get involved with, from your home that are kind of, broadcast nationally or kind of whatever. But just, be kind of, open-minded when you're kind of doing your research and making sure that you're kind of thinking about all these different aspects.
Yep, agree. And just to drive home some points we've touched on before here of, it is important to prioritize. So do that start, stop, continue. Seek for balance. We're looking for well-roundedness. We want you to be healthy and happy too, right? So that balance matters. And then if you can try to work some new things in there to be exploratory, that can really show that you're open to new ideas. This is an important thing because, gosh, the coolest thing about college, well, there's so many cool things, but one is like you just suddenly have like this world open to you of like so many resources and experiences and opportunities. And so it bodes really well and signals really well to see that you are somebody who is going to take advantage of all those amazing opportunities that are there because you are trying new things. You are going out of your comfort zone. So it's a good principle to keep in mind.
Kind of lastly, just want to hammer in kind of these 3 points home that I think, we've talked about throughout kind of this presentation, but quality over quantity is super important, right? Make sure that what you are choosing to participate in are kind of aligned with your interests, things that you're passionate about, believable, right? Not just doing things to have a bunch of things on your resume to check one box in every category. That's kind of not the recommendation. It's to make sure that you're choosing quality extracurriculars that are really aligned to you. Which kind of leads into that second point, right? Be authentic. Make sure you are doing that self-reflection about thinking about what gets you excited. What do you look forward to doing every day, and choosing to do those things because that will definitely shine through. And then don't go overboard, right? So be mindful of the time commitments that these extracurriculars will take. Having a leadership role in a club is going to take more time than just being a member. So making sure that you're being cognizant of that, and then balancing that with kind of your academics and kind of the other things going on in your life. You don't want to let your grades slip, and you want to kind of make time for yourself as well. So those are kind of the 3 big points.
Yep. Second all of that.
Awesome. All right. So things open up for a Q&A now. So if you have any other questions.
On Daniel's question here.
Ask away.
Sorry, my
It's all good.
So Daniel asked a question here of like, does my passion have to be directly linked to the major I'm applying to? And this is a really good question. And the answer is like, no. But also you want to make sure that, you like, why do you want to do this major, and can you find some things in your extracurricular activities, in your experience, academic or extracurricular, that connects to that in some way. For example, it doesn't have to be, it could be like, I really love working with people, and this major is going to set me up for a career where I'm really working with people. So your choir experience might be related, and that like some of those skills that you're doing, some of the experience you're having does relate to this like career, like working closely with people. I don't know, or appreciation of beauty, or attention to detail, or teamwork, or exploration. Some of these like generic things that you get from those experiences might translate into your major. That's a good question.
All right, a couple other questions we have. So I think we have one or two questions about this. Do activities that you do in middle school count?
I don't know what you think, Jenny. I would say typically, we emphasize high school, but that's not to say you can't bring in something from middle school if it's a really standout sort of thing. Certainly in your essays, sometimes if there's formative experiences early in your life that are important to you and who you are, and are kind of part of a theme that continues throughout your kind of high school experience, that can be good. So it's not it's not a hard no, but it's about like, how do you tell the best story? And the most recent things are going to be most looked at probably more heavily. I don't know. Would you agree with that, Jenny?
Yeah, I think I would. I think like longevity is probably preferable to, if you've got one activity that you do for 1 year and then you switch to something totally different, and the next year you do something else. So kind of, just laundry listing all of those things, things that you did in middle school that you might not be interested in anymore. I would say, that's probably not as effective as being able to show, here's one activity that I've done for all 4 years of high school, or one activity that I started in middle school that I'm still doing now in high school. I think that's going to be much more kind of effective in kind of telling your story and convincing kind of admissions committees that this is something you're super passionate about.
And showing that growth over time, right? You can't do that if it was just something you did in middle school and it's separate. Such a good point.
Exactly.
But if you do, it sounds like if you have something that you started in middle school and did throughout high school as well, you can put it in your activities, and you can also use your original start date when you were in middle school as that start date. So you don't have to pretend you didn't do it before then.
Right. Let's see, a question about leadership roles and not getting selected. I think that's go for it, Hallie.
I would say I just want to cover if you have too many activities to put on the Common App, what to do. I know we covered it a couple minutes ago, but I just want to cover it for anyone that missed it.
Yep. So I think for this one, kind of a lot of the things we talked about before were, potential ways maybe of consolidating, of maybe being able to combine some into one. But otherwise, like really being thoughtful about prioritizing the ones that are kind of most impactful and kind of most important, things that you're super passionate about, spend a lot of time doing, and kind of prioritizing those is going to be more effective than kind of, like we said, the kind of a laundry list of a bunch of different activities.
Great. And then if someone who's in an honor society, should they be putting that in awards and honors if it's not one of their like top 10 activities, or should it be put in activities?
So it's just a question of like where to put it. I mean, I don't have a strong when you look at your application, sometimes you may be heavier in one category or the other. If it could fit in either one, you can maybe have some discretion there.
Yeah, I think it's fine to put an honor society if you're kind of just a member of an honor society, kind of within your honors. Maybe that changes if you are leadership of your honor society and you've spent a lot of time kind of, working on that, working within that group, then maybe you would prefer it in extracurriculars. But I think it depends. I think it depends on you, and it's kind of fine either way.
We're getting a couple of questions about how to prioritize different activities within the activity lists that you have to provide to colleges. And I think from what I'm hearing, you both say, it sounds like you should be heavily prioritizing the activities that you've spent the most amount of time participating in and have had the biggest impact in, and that have had the biggest impact on you, and kind of work down from there. So if you have activities that you've done but didn't really care about as much and didn't spend a lot of time doing, you can leave those out if you don't have room, or see if you can consolidate those into a different activity and combine the categories. Is that
seems good
that
to
right?
me. That seems good to me. The other thing I would add is, the ones that you can quantify the best, X number of hours of service, or took first place in this, or grew the club membership by 25%. Anything like that can really pop too.
Great. So summer programs, we talked about this briefly. Someone is wondering if participating in a summer program at a particular school, if that increases your chances of acceptance at that particular school.
I would say not necessarily, but I think every school has a, why do you want to come to this school in particular? And what you don't want to do is say, well, obviously you don't want to say like, well, because you're a top 10 school, like that's not special. Or you don't want to say something generic like, well, you have this program and you have this program and this program. It's so much better if you can say, hey, I met these two alumni, and they were telling me about this fantastic experience they had, and it just like got me so excited and so enthused. Or I went on campus and I met the faculty there. I met X professor and Y professor, and they were just like so encouraging, so supportive, and their work was fascinating. And I just like would love to be part of this community. Right? Suddenly, that's a really personal story, and it's a compelling reason why you are really going to be invested in that school. And so going to some of these summer programs can give you the opportunity to develop that personal connection. That can be kind of an X factor that tips an application in your favor.
Great. Can a passion project be considered an extracurricular? And if so, how do you tie that into an essay or the essay, or I'm assuming also the activities section?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. A passion project, depending on what it is, if it's something you're super interested in and have spent a lot of time doing, I'm positive that there's tons of things that you can write about of your experience with that, what you've learned, how you've grown, how that's impacted you, why you're pursuing that particular passion. And I think that's definitely something you can write about. In the Common App, there's always kind of, I forget exactly what all the questions are, but there's always kind of an open question of kind of just, write whatever you want to write about. And so you definitely have an opportunity to do it there, or definitely a lot of the shorter essays, you have opportunities to kind of talk about it there as well.
Yeah, open up those essays like tonight and like read them, and don't spend a lot of time, like don't like write them, but like just like do a brain dump right away of like what comes to mind right away, like how might I respond to this? Just like bulleted lists or sentence fragments, whatever. Just like get it out and put that in a Google Doc somewhere. And just having read it, just having done that exercise will help you to be thinking about how that passion project can plug into essays like that. The essays may change a little bit, but the types of essays are relatively similar, especially if you're planning to attend schools. You're going to write about the same sorts of things that they're asking this year.
Great. So we have someone that just moved to a different state, and a lot of the extracurriculars they used to do don't exist in their new location. What are some ways they can choose meaningful extracurriculars that they don't have to put a full 4 years worth of time into?
I would say that, like, even if it's, one specific organization that you were previously involved with that no longer exists in kind of the new city that you might be in, I hope that you should be thinking about maybe just, why were you involved in that organization? Kind of, was it volunteering? Was it, helping a specific marginalized community? Was it, sports, that sort of thing, and finding maybe something similar in your new city. It doesn't have to be kind of, the exact same group that you were involved with kind of over 4 years. You can kind of still show that longevity and that growth by, having the same activity that you've been involved in.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. I like that. This isn't...
Maybe talking about the move and how that affected you also, and how that took you away from activities, and an essay could be something, a challenge that you can talk about you having overcome.
It could be that, if there's something that you really miss in your new community, how can you bring that into the community? Leverage your past experience and, start something. That could be really neat. There's also something to be said for, every, city or region or school has its own kind of like unique things that it's kind of like its competitive advantage. It's something that it's like uniquely sort of good at. And so like trying to tap into that can be like a good rewarding thing to do in a new environment as well.
Let's see. Someone else is wondering if vocational skills like DJing or welding would be attractive to Ivy League schools.
I wouldn't count anything out necessarily. I think if you can kind of show why, you're interested in that, what you've learned from those activities, kind of how those things have impacted you, and kind of really show, like a genuine story behind kind of those vocational skills. I think those can be just as effective as kind of your more standard activities.
Sure. And again, find the things that might thread into what you're doing. Like, is there a machine shop at the university that does some really, that does some really interesting things? Are you interested in mechanical engineering, and maybe that welding experience like taps into that? Are you building something with it, right? Like that's that can be impressive and creative. And are you solving problems with that? So yeah, second that. I wouldn't rule any of it out, but it's more about, again, like how do you use it? How do you demonstrate the attributes of the personal growth through it?
Great. What about someone that is starting a club in 12th grade? Is that too short of an experience to mention on a college application, or too late, so to speak?
I'm doing this with a student right now, and we're planning right now for what are the milestones that we're going to try to reach before January, so in the first semester, and then also like what is the big goal that you're reaching towards for the whole year. So it's okay to say like, hey, we're I started this club and we're reaching for this kind of big outcome that's going to come in April, and we've made this progress to this day. We're on track for it. That can still be a great story. I love what Jenny's saying about this longevity thing, and hopefully it's part of an interest that goes back further than just like now. But even if it's not, there's still definitely merit in that.
Right. And then in terms of doing volunteer work, is it better to do it throughout the year or equally valuable to do volunteer work over the summer?
I think in my mind, equally valuable. Again, as long as you're not doing it to check off the box, and you are kind of the volunteer work, maybe the activity that you're super passionate about is only available in the summer. So I don't think it's, necessarily about a timing issue, being able to kind of show that you're committed to something, but more so kind of, what that actually activity is and how that kind of relates to you.
And then with volunteering or internships, are there a number of hours that are good to have, or does the actual number not matter as much?
Hours is one way to quantify your impact, but I'd rather, if you can find another way to demonstrate, the impact or the output, I would prefer to do that. I don't know that I have like a hard number. I guess part of it is like it's relative. So the things that you've spent more time on, like those are the ones that you're going to want to like emphasize and put up there, and the ones you spend less time on. But I don't necessarily know that I've got a minimum threshold. It's more about like how impactful was this? What did you accomplish? What did you learn? And you're more likely to have gotten that the more hours there are. So that's kind of a squishy answer, Jenny. I don't know if you could put a finer point on that.
No, I think I agree. Yeah, no hard number, kind of not about, again, like these are not going to be like, follow this rule and you're good. Kind of it's all relative to kind of who you are, what your story is, what you're interested in, and making sure the things that you're doing are kind of aligned with that.
All right, we have someone else who's wondering if, so they taught soccer skills to kids for 2 months. Can that be used to demonstrate leadership?
Yeah,
Sure.
I think that's great. Yeah, short answer.
All right, and then someone else is wondering, so there are students that are interested in, say, computer science. What are some ways to find internships while you are in high school? Do either of you have any resources or know of any good places to look for that?
So I have a student like this who's done several hackathons as a way to kind of meet people and do kind of like a sprint. And some of those projects, one of those projects end up being something that they've been working on for a longer period of time, and that's how that particular student found something there. There's good classes for that, but actually, it would be really cool if if you can solve a problem with your CS skills, right? If you like in your club or in your sports team or your debate team or something, like can you solve a problem with building an app for them? That would be really neat. So maybe it connects with your service or leadership.
Yeah, and I think there's also, I've seen kind of lots of kind of intro to coding types of programs for younger kids that will definitely kind of take high schoolers in as both, you can be a part-time job or volunteering. So I would, maybe try to search for some of those kind of intro to coding types of programs. Could be a good opportunity there.
I would also recommend, and this could apply to anything that you're interested in. Lots of people are willing to have, a 20-minute conversation with an excited high school student who just wants to know what they're doing. So if you can find people, use your parents' network or people in the community, to have just informational interviews with and just explore, and then ask them questions like, how can I get involved? Can you show me what you do? What do you recommend I read? What blogs do you recommend I follow, or podcasts to listen to? And start building those connections and relationships. They might have good ideas for you, and also that will really help you explore that interest.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our time today. I know we have a couple of questions we didn't answer, and if we didn't get to your question, feel free to send us an email, reach out to us on our website through the form, and you can talk with our enrollment team. I want to say thank you to Jenny and Dan for all of their information today. It was great having you both. And then for everyone who joined us, thank you so much for spending some time with us, and I hope that we were able to answer some of your questions. Feel free, again, to reach out on our website, schedule a time to talk about with our team to talk about how our services can help you. And we also have a lot of other webinars coming up and previous webinars on our site that you can take a look at as well. I hope everyone has a really great evening.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.